Hello and welcome to Practical Ideas for Growth. I'm Sarah Dobek, and today I'm joined by Hendrickson, and we're going to have a growth conversation today.
Yay, I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, I guess the first thing I want to say is to all our CPA friends, congrats on the first part of tax season. I hope you all got a little R&R yesterday, and I'm sure a lot of you have some planned vacations coming up.
All kinds of good stuff. I hope none of you guys are listening right now. I hate to say that, but hopefully you're going to catch this on repeat. Hopefully everyone's still relaxing.
Yeah. So Ty and I have been spending a lot of time talking about what growth means lately. Primarily because one of the consistent things that we've been hearing, and not just during tax season, but really for the last year, is it's really hard for us to grow when we have no bandwidth. And so we've been digging into this topic quite a bit, very consistently. We've got a lot of sessions teed up in the next couple months to cover it at some of our conferences, but it's hard as a growth professional to hear that. And I think part of the reason that we hear that is because there's a complete misconception around the definition of growth and what it really means. And so I don't know, let's talk about debunking that and what it really means to us, maybe how we define that.
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten the brunt of this the past year because I do a lot of business development coaching with partners and firms. And, the first time we get on the call, if not everyone is super excited about these conversations. And they're like, you want me to set goals? Why are we setting goals? We have too much stuff. And so I feel like I have the same conversation with everyone that growth doesn't always mean more. The reason we're doing this and the reason we're focusing intentionally on growth isn't because we want to keep packing stuff in and we want to just keep bringing more money in and we just want to bring more clients and more, even though everyone's burnt out. That's not the definition and that's not the goal of these growth conversations, right? I think that once you can get past that hurdle, it really changes a lot of the mindset, but it starts a lot at the leadership level too, right? Because everyone's all excited and the leaders have embraced this idea. Oh man, we're going to grow and we're going to grow the right way. And we're going to start bringing in the right clients. We're going to do all these great activities that are going to make growth beneficial for the firm. But then the trickle down conversation doesn't always happen. And everyone just hears, you want me to bring in more? So I know that you probably hear this a lot in your conversations too. So what do you feel like is the disconnect that we get to that more definition?
I think it's because we associate growth with just lead generation. And you touched on this, and one of our core principles is that growth is a mindset in every firm. And it's about how you look at things. It's about, looking at something and seeing optimism and opportunity, right? And versus seeing something that's just going to add more to your plate or feels sort of like a negative. And so it shows up in a lot of different ways, but includes things like continuous learning and trying things a different way. Innovation, very popular term these days. And innovation doesn't have to equal like technology or building a new product. It could be like streamlining your service delivery, like one small tweak to something that can make an impact to what you do. And so I think there's a big misconception because we associate it so much with lead generation and so much with just marketing, but it goes so much deeper than that.
So how would you say is a good way to think about growth, or how should firms, knowing that they're in this, not enough people, too much work, how can we define growth, or how should we define growth?
Well, what I've been having the conversation with a lot of our clients around is quality over quantity, right? And I think that's the intent. You mentioned client culling, and this has been a big thing for firms in the last year and a half. On average, we saw from our growth outlook report that there's at least almost a 4.5% culling rate that firms reported in, and I know firms that were culling a lot more than that, and that's a big deal because historically firms typically only raise their rates about 3%, right? So they were intentionally culling more than the rates they were raising, right? They were okay letting go of some of that work, primarily bandwidth, because it wasn't a good fit anymore. And that's that's equally important, right? Who you're serving, making sure that you're serving the right market for how you're structured, the people you have, the people are your product, right? So if you're giving your product to the wrong people or it's not appealing, like you've got to work on some of those things. So I think we have to start by thinking about it as quality over quantity along with mindset.
Yeah. I it just blows my mind because we've had some conversations even already. I know it's, 2 days past the deadline, but we've had conversations with firms that culled in the past year, right? And they were so nervous, so stressed about it. It's intimidating to do. What if we get rid of all this and then we can't back it up, type of thing. And I don't, I think every firm that I've talked to that has culled and has culled a significant amount. I did talk to a firm the other day that said they culled 4 people this last year. And I was like, well, okay, I'm not sure that's going to make much of an impact, but that was a big step for them.
Yeah.
But they intentionally fired 4. But other firms they've culled a significant amount of work. And it's not that tax season was easy by any stretch of the imagination, but they all say we actually did more revenue with less work, and our people had a more reasonable workload, or we're striving towards that, or we're getting closer to that with this culling process. And it's so hard to understand, if I get rid of all of this, how is that growing? And why would I want to do that if we've got all these people on staff and they've got to have work and everything like that? So it's almost like the opposite of growth, but it's the whole process that makes a difference and allows them to make space, to your point, for the right people for their products, right? The right clients for the work that they do. And it's helping to balance that out. And it's such a different mindset, to your point. It's so hard to define growth in a different way than more, but it makes a huge difference on the way the firm continues to move in what direction they want to go in.
Yeah. I mean, it's a process. Let's just be clear that every firm I know starts with the most unprofitable work. That's the easy, low hanging fruit, right? It's hard. It's not hard to make a case for that inside of a firm. Where it gets hard is what we call getting into the distractions, right? And distractions are usually, profitable clients, right? And I don't always advocate looking at every client, on an individual profitability level, but most firms do. So it's a metric that we use, and they're good. They make money. You're not writing the work down, but they're not substantial. They're not usually, giving you more than one service. It's typically the bare minimum. You get a decent amount of money for it, so you don't really want to let it go. But what happens is in your busiest time of year, they distract you from doing the real work that you need to be doing, the work with your larger, more substantial, complex clients, the ones that really like get you going, right? And I've heard this over and over again that, they don't have the time to properly serve some of their largest clients, even though that's what they want to be doing. That's an ideal for every firm. And so I always advocate those distractions, but that's the hardest part, because anytime you go inside of a firm, there's people hanging on to those distractions because that's where they're comfortable. They've been doing this work for years. Maybe their rainmaking skills are limited to being able to bring in those level of clients, and so there is a huge resistance. Oftentimes, we see, not typically by the whole firm, but some subsets inside of the firm that are just not ready to let go of that. And it is a process to change that culture, because we say that culling shouldn't be an event that happens one time every decade. It should be something that you look at every year. I remember entering the profession and working for a small firm, and one of the big 5 at the time was a great referral source for us. They went through this every year, and every year, sometime around November, early December, we get a call with a couple of leads. Like, these are no longer a great fit for us. We think they'd be perfect for you. You have the right skill set. And they were fantastic clients for us. But, outside of those largest firms in the marketplace, we haven't gotten into the habit of doing that. And it's been hurting us as a profession for a long time.
Yeah, and I'm going to take us in a little bit of a circle with what you said too, because it's interesting. You mentioned about never look, like not looking at our clients every year, and you mentioned we just keep bringing in. And you mentioned certain partners that have the skill set, they just bring in a certain type of client. They're not bringing in the right type of client. And it's funny because I feel like that's something that we're also seeing right now when it comes to growth. There's a lot of firms out there that have been in this, we have so much work. Don't worry about bringing in new clients. Don't worry about business development. Don't worry about, we've got growth. Just get the work done. And now these firms are having to promote people to partner who don't have those rainmaking skills. Not everybody should be a rainmaker, but don't have the ability to bring in new business. They're definitely not bringing in the right type of business. And now they're kind of in like this panic mode of, we kind of let everything slide, and they're having to start over on developing these individuals that are in a leadership level. And it is so much harder to get someone at that level to take a step back and start thinking about the ideal client. And do we have the right network in place? Do we have the right client relationships in place? And have we built our foundation the right way to be able to leverage it now? And I think it's starting to get to be a little bit of a panic point too, where some firms are starting to think about growth again in terms of bringing in additional business, and they don't have the foundation for it. So that's a whole nother piece to this.
Well, and the other part of this, again, we think of business development skills, mutually exclusively to like lead generation. And there's so many different roles of growth in the firm. And part of creating a growth culture is bringing some awareness that there are different ways you can contribute to growth in the firm, right? Client service is critically important, right? And we know a lot of fantastic, smart technical folks that just aren't suited for sourcing, right? And running somebody through a complex sales process. But they're great at expanding relationships, or could be great at expanding relationships with clients, because they're really good at serving them. They're really good at building a relationship with them. And today, that happens to be the big focus for most of the firms we're working with. Again, quality over quantity. If we're going to call some of these, we want to expand with them. Most firms have some level of consulting or advisory services that they are now offering, CAS being the most popular, but lots of them have other entities and other types of things they're bringing in. For all the firms we talk to, it's a component of their vision, if they've set a vision, right? That they want to be doing more of that work. And you have to have time to do that work. And it's critically important to have people that can do that, to have people that can share their technical expertise in the form of thought leadership, that don't have to be on the front lines, meeting with referral sources all the time, bringing in business. There are people super well suited for that in every firm. And then there are other people that don't see that what they do is a major contribution to growth in the firm.
Yeah, we saw on the survey this year in the report, and I thought it was just kind of blew my mind. It was the first year where, when firms were surveyed, where are you getting the most new business from? It was the first year that client referrals outpaced referrals from their network. And so to me, that's a huge indication of where people should be spending their time, right? We all know it's so much more expensive to replace a client, than keep a client and all that. And so if you're spending time with the clients and you're developing these relationships, that's where good firms are getting a lot of their referrals from. And so you get two sides to this. You get the bonus of happy, loyal clients that are expanding, and they're sending you good clients as well. And so it doesn't have to be as complicated as I think everyone makes more growth, right? It's, if you can just develop good relationships with your clients, that's a huge part in contributing to the growth culture.
Yeah. And, one of the hangups that I see for a lot of firms, they're definitely bought into this idea of better client service. Mm-hmm. And sadly, I think there's a perception there. Most firms, if we speak to them, are like, yeah, we're doing a great job. We're serving our clients well. And when you get into the conversation, they're reacting. to client requests and needs, but they don't have the time. They're not comfortable going deeper than that. They're not having the conversations that you need to have to be able to do some of the consulting and advisory. And that's a skill set that you have to learn today. And it's not something you just wake up with. There's those rare few unicorns, right? That just comes natural to them. But I would say by and large, it's a skill set that can be learned, but it's a skill set that needs to be taught. And one of the challenges with bandwidth that we've also heard over the years is people are afraid to ask their people to train on things beyond technical. And one of the things that we saw in the survey was that the highest growth firms are making a big investment into learning and development. And I think they're smart to do that because of all the transformation going on in the profession. And this is just one component, right, of that bigger picture.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, giving them the opportunity to practice, giving them the skills to learn. I just think there's a whole big opportunity here. And I'm actually going to throw out there, we are launching a new challenge this summer that I think would be really helpful for anybody or any firm that's looking to do, this growth culture development. And we're just going to have some fun with it. We're going to have a little bit of learning, some activities, opportunities to win prizes, just by doing the things that, we should be doing, like talking to clients and, and maybe talking to some referral people, maybe just coming to some lunch and learns, that type of stuff, but just getting the chance to practice and learn and have some fun with it. So
yeah, it's so important today, even with all this bandwidth, that we're investing in developing our people. And it doesn't have to be a full day training session. It can just be, small amounts. We've found how important it is to make sure that there's some sort of blended learning available today, because managing that bandwidth is difficult. And your employees want to learn. Your staff members want to learn. They want to be challenged. It's one of the reasons they stay or they leave a firm. Are they enjoying the clients they're working with? Are they getting the opportunity to do more challenging things? And there's a lot of reward in knowing that you can help a client. And all of those skills are what we say are baseline to becoming maybe a business developer one day at a different level. Well, we are about at time, so I'm going to call it. But thank you so much to our listeners. We'll leave a link for that challenge if you're interested in checking it out. Let us know, or if you have questions. And to anybody else, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Great, thanks.